Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Europe podcast, available every morning on Apple, Spotify or wherever you listen. It's Tuesday, the 15th of October here in London. I'm Caroline Hepker. Coming up today, the US considers country-by-country sales caps for the likes of Nvidia and AMD chips. The UK's Prime Minister tells Bloomberg that speculation capital gains tax could hit 39% is wide of the mark. Plus, putting the life in lifelike, Tesla's Optimus robot prototypes were remote controlled by humans for some capabilities at an event last week. Let's start with a roundup of our top stories. The US is considering capping sales of advanced AI chips from Nvidia and other American companies to specific countries. Exclusive reporting from Bloomberg reveals that officials in the Biden administration are considering the move in a bid to limit some nations' artificial intelligence capabilities. Bloomberg's Annabelle Drewlers says the focus of restrictions is on the Middle East.
This is a region we know that's looking to invest very heavily into AI data centres in particular. They've got companies that are wanting to establish there or build up their data centre presence, and they've also got very deep pockets to fund them. The Middle East, we know it's a place that has a growing relationship with China, which is what these sorts of caps were initially put in place for, was to restrict China's high-tech ambitions. So there is a concern that if you allow companies like Nvidia, AMD to export to third-party countries, those chips could still make their way to places, particularly to China.
Annabelle Drewlers speaking there about Bloomberg's reporting, which also notes that US deliberations are in their early stages. The news of a possible overseas sales cap for the likes of Nvidia broke just hours after the AI chip giant's share price hit its first record close since June. The stock is up almost 14% this month after CEO Jensen Huang said that Nvidia's Blackwell chip is in full production and that demand for it is, quote, insane. Now, China has begun enforcing a long-overlooked tax on overseas investment gains by the country's ultra-rich. Sources tell us that wealthy individuals in major Chinese cities are facing levies of up to 20% on investment gains, with some also subject to penalties on overdue payments. The move underscores growing urgency within the government to expand its sources of revenue as land sales have tumbled and growth has slowed in China. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told Bloomberg that Britain won't be raising capital gains tax to 39%. The UK leader was at his London Investment Summit, where his government drew pledges totalling £63 billion in terms of private investment. In an exclusive interview, Bloomberg's Stephanie Flanders asked Keir Starmer if business should fear a capital gains tax hike to 39%.
Well, quite a lot of speculation is getting pretty wide of the mark, but
so you say that 39 is wide of the mark?
Yeah, it's getting to the area which is wide of the mark.
So Keir Starmer, like most UK officials, usually avoids commenting on fiscal measures this close to the budget. The business charm offensive was backed up by CEOs from some of the country's largest lenders. They say that international investors won't be deterred by some of the tough decisions that are expected in the budget. Israel says that it is listening to US misgivings about an attack on Iran, but will act on its own judgment. That statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office comes after a report in the Washington Post claiming that Israel planned to limit any strike. The news comes after Israel said that a fresh barrage of missiles was fired from Lebanon a day after a Hezbollah drone strike killed 4 IDF soldiers. Speaking yesterday, Netanyahu vowed to continue to target the militant group in all parts of the country.
We are fighting a tough campaign against Iran's axis of evil that wants to destroy us. They won't make it. We keep fighting. We pay painful prices, but we have tremendous achievements, and we will continue to achieve them.
The Israeli leader also denied targeting UN peacekeepers in Lebanon. Lebanon's health ministry says that Israel has killed almost 1,700 people in the past month. Following that Washington Post report, oil extended losses. Brent crude futures dropped to near $75 a barrel after losing 2% on Monday. West Texas Intermediate slid by to below $72 a barrel. Crude prices have been on a roller coaster in recent weeks as traders reacted to Israel's vow to retaliate significantly to the October 1st missile barrage from Iran. Futures also declined on Monday after China's finance ministry briefing lacked specific new incentives to boost consumption in the world's biggest crude importer, plus OPEC projected weakening demand growth. Elon Musk's Optimus bots stole the show at the firm's recent Cybercab event, if you recall. But it appears that the billionaire Tesla CEO may not have been entirely transparent about their operation. Bloomberg's Tiwa Adebayo has more.
Touted as the biggest project ever of any kind, Elon Musk promised his new Optimus robot could perform tasks including babysitting, shopping and even friendship. But despite what the entrepreneur sees as their revolutionary potential, the prototype still seemed to need some help. Whilst the robots were seen pouring drinks and high-fiving attendees at the October event, Bloomberg understands humans were working behind the scenes, remotely controlling their actions. Although at least one online video reportedly from the gathering shows an Optimus bartender acknowledging human help, Musk failed to mention the fact during his webcast. The use of human input raises questions over the capabilities and market readiness of the bot, which the CEO claims could eventually be available for $20,000 to $30,000. In London, Tiwa Adebayo, Bloomberg Radio.
OK, so those are a few of our top stories for you then this morning. Let's get to the markets. So the major move yesterday, the S&P 500 rose 0.8%. Nvidia saw a gain of 2.4% to a record high. Bitcoin was also up 5%. The dollar gained 0.3% and is up 0.1% this morning. Oil declined on Monday 2.3% and is falling another 3.4% for Brent crude futures right now. In the Asian session, shares have been sagging. The CSI 300 is currently down 0.8%. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong down by 1.6% this morning. Stock futures for the Europe, for the US Stocks 50 futures, they're up by 0.3%. And then just looking at the bond markets this morning, 4.09 for 10-year yields, down about a basis point. So those are the markets this hour. In a moment, we're going to look at the US bank earnings, which are to come today. Of course, we've got Bank of America at 11:45 a.m. UK time. Goldman Sachs then drops at 12:30 and Citigroup at 1 p.m. So Bloomberg's Charlie Wells is going to bring us up to speed with what to expect. But before that, this story caught my eye. Where do you get the world's best pension? Bloomberg's Amy Bainbridge has been writing about the world's best and worst pension systems. This is according to the latest report. It's an annual report from Mercer CFA Institute, their global pension index. They look at 48 different pension systems. Drum roll, please. The result is that the best retirement is in the Netherlands, followed by Iceland, Denmark and Israel. OK, no luck for me. In terms of where the UK ranks 11th out of 48, didn't think that was too bad. The US ranks 29th, Japan is 36th, and right at the bottom of the heap in terms of pension system, and we're thinking, state pension system here, India ranks worst, apparently. But there is, of course, growing pressure, as Amy writes, on government systems because of longer life expectancy, falling fertility rates, high interest rates, the rising cost of care also as we get older. Anyway, she's had a look at this whole report and breaking down which are the best and worst pension systems currently this year. So this is just looking at 2024. It's on the Bloomberg terminal for you this morning, which I thought was quite interesting. Now, artificial intelligence darling Nvidia saw its shares spike yesterday after the firm appeared to mollify investors who are concerned with product delays. The CEO of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, proclaimed that Nvidia's much sought-after Blackwell chip is in full production, in his words, and that demand for it is insane. The stock is up almost 14% this month. Joining me now to discuss Bloomberg Intelligence's senior analyst, Robert Lee. Robert, good morning. Thanks for being with me. Why the excitement about the Blackwell chip? Why is that so important in your view?
Well, where have you been the last few months? I mean, it's been Blackwell, AI all the way. And the fact in your intro you mentioned Bitcoin and Nvidia in the same sentence, I think, first of all, says it's been more of an increase in risk appetite we've seen in markets recently that have driven Nvidia to, potentially meet new highs. But Blackwell is NVIDIA's next generation chip based on a fundamentally new architecture. It's something that the company announced to the world back in March. There were some concerns or major concerns about production delays in and around September time, but it's become clear over the last month or so that the company, in partnership with TSMC, which is its main fabrication partner, has worked through those issues and that things are getting back on track. So I think that's led to some degree of relief rally, and also, with a backdrop of increasing risk appetite in the markets. So this is a fundamentally new chip that will enable NVIDIA to meet that insatiable demand that's out there for AI chips, and also allow them to potentially extend their market leadership at the moment on a technology basis, because they've got a considerable lead over the likes of Intel and AMD at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to look at the share price to see investors are obviously clearly very enthusiastic. Nvidia was up 2.4% yesterday, and another record high close for the stock price. But then how do you layer in, the intense competition globally around chips, and Bloomberg reporting US officials are considering capping sales of these advanced AI chips to certain countries, seems particularly focused on Persian Gulf countries. Will this make a material difference to those countries or any others?
Okay, well, on the Nvidia side, as Jensen Huang has said, the demand is insane. Demand is by far outstripping supply at the moment. So I think the sort of story that was reported on the terminal earlier has got maybe two bases. The first is, I suppose, like every country, you want to look after your own when the supply is in short, or there is a shortness of supply. Then maybe putting caps on exports or the ability to export to foreign countries will help the domestic US AI industry. But I think more realistically, this ties into the ongoing geopolitical tensions between China and the US. And given the economic relations continue to strengthen between China and the Gulf region, and there have been ongoing concerns, unfounded concerns, but still, widely reported concerns that maybe Chinese companies are circumventing the export controls on Nvidia chips by importing these products via friendly countries, whether that's in the Gulf or elsewhere. I think that's another potential driver of this unconfirmed story.
Yeah. Okay, Robert, thank you so much for being with us and explaining that. Bloomberg Intelligence senior analyst Robert Lee on Nvidia. Thank you. Let's look ahead then to what's happening on Wall Street. JP Morgan and Wells Fargo reported a positive surprise for investors last week. Unexpected gains in net interest income and investment banking fees. Now attention shifts to Goldman Sachs, Bank of America and Citigroup today, followed by Morgan Stanley tomorrow. Bloomberg's Charlie Wells is with me. Good morning, Charlie. Just give us the context across the industry and the economy as these three major Wall Street banks are set to report later today.
Yeah, no pressure on these three companies as they have sort of tough acts to follow from last week when JP Morgan and Wells Fargo beat expectations and were heavily rewarded by the market. But if you look broadly and kind of put this into context, the macro backdrop is pretty good for banks right now, right? The U.S. economy is strong. The labor market is strong. You're seeing, of course, that 50 basis point cut last month, which, threatens net interest income. But JP Morgan was able to beat expectations on that front. It's looking like at the other banks, there will probably be declines. But looking across the board, pretty solid, not just from the economy, but also from competitors.
So then what are the analysts expecting from Goldman and Bank of America and Citi?
So executives made a lot of comments during conference season last month to kind of temper expectations for these banks, because there has been a lot of excitement. So if you think about Goldman Sachs, David Solomon talked about trading, and he really tried to kind of lower expectations there, talking about how trading was on track to be down 10%. So that's one issue. issue. Bank of America, a little bit different. So Brian Moynihan, again last month, was talking about investment banking and how the transaction mix for that bank just hasn't been right. So we're looking for a little bit of softness there. And then Citigroup also, reporting today, Mark Mason, their CFO, made some interesting comments about card losses. And so that kind of brings up issues of the consumer under pressure. So a lot of different issues at all these different banks. They, again, are so different, but it'll give a really interesting read on the sector and the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Charlie, for being with me this morning to explain Bloomberg's Charlie Wells. So watch out then, 11:45 a.m. UK time for Bank of America, which is up first. Then a little bit later, 45 minutes later, you get Goldman Sachs. And at 1 p.m. London time, Citigroup. So those are the big Wall Street banks to watch out for. But I have to tell you, later today, there is going to be a blockbuster interview that you must tune in for. Bloomberg's editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite will be sitting down with Donald Trump for a live exclusive interview. You can tune in to Bloomberg TV and radio at 5 p.m. London time for that exclusive conversation. It is noon New York time if you want to hear Donald Trump speaking to Bloomberg's editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.